So hello, thank you everyone for being here today. Today we've got Dingo from Dingo Doodles.
Hello.
And we also got Jess from Just Dacta.
Hello.
And it's me, Puffin Forest. And today we're just going to be answering some of your questions because I asked on Twitter and they sent me questions and we got some answers. And in the background, we're going to be drawing each other's characters. Yeah. So anyway, let's kind of get into it.
We got a lot of questions. Jeez, thanks, guys.
Oh my God.
I just want to say, thank you. I really appreciate everyone who sent in questions. You guys have been great because it was I asked the day before, okay, I need some questions, and you guys.
So the panic sets in. You're like, oh God, we actually need questions.
We're like, wait a second, we haven't asked people yet. This is happening tomorrow.
And it wasn't even a full 24 hours. It was we need questions and we need them in 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
you.
But there was one question which we had prepared already, which is the one that a lot of people ask that we want to answer, which is what programs do we use for our different things? Do either of you want to start?
Yeah, I use the Adobe suite, so I guess I'm a heathen. Sell out, I guess, but the thing is, I'm using Photoshop. That's what I'm using right now.
I have the suite as well. It's very nice. I have made the devil's deal.
Oh yes, you have to sign in blood. Adobe gets your firstborn child.
Mm.
All right?
Yeah, people don't read the full terms of use when they check the box, but
yep. Yeah. Dingo's safe though, right? Right, Dingo? Well,
I use Premiere Pro, so I have Adobe in there.
I think we all use Premiere Pro to edit, at least, to do a lot of our editing.
I don't know, Puffin, do you?
I actually switched to Premiere. I used to use HitFilm for Express, and that was great. It worked perfectly fine. It's just it's one of those kind of cheap alternatives. So it's one of those things where it's it doesn't have this feature, or how do you do a zoom in? Well, you got to make a composite shot and have this thing happen and this thing happens. There's anything that you want to do, there's a bunch of other steps that you have to do.
Sounds
in
like
between.
math class.
Yeah. Oh,
so I'm hey, I do this every day. I really need to have a better program, and so I switched to Adobe Premiere, and it really streamlined the process for me. I will say,
what are you drawing with more specifically?
I've been using I've been using Fire Alpaca, and I like that. I used to use Krita when I would just draw with a mouse, but then Krita is not as good with a drawing tablet, so I had to switch
and
to
those
another
are both
program.
free, right?
Yes, those are both free. Yes.
Yeah.
I use Paint Tool Sci. So, that's been my program for God knows how long, 10 years or something
and
like that.
And that's not free, but it is, you pay once and you get
Yeah, it's $60.
Yeah.
For the paying once. It's really, it's my favorite program, so I use it all the time, and I love it. And I use a tiny bamboo tablet. People got these big Cintiqs, and I got this tiny bamboo that I use. I like smaller tablets, I think.
Oh,
so.
I never knew you use a bamboo. Oh.
Yeah, I do one of the cheap ones, the ones that are only, cheap.
Air quotes.
Quote.
Yeah, it's always...
It's about $80,
It's always
there you go. You guys have no excuse. You can actually art
you can
awesomely.
You can make art with just $80 and $60 program. So get on it.
Yeah, no excuse. Dingo can do it. You can too.
I think the only other program I use is I use Moho Pro 12 for lip syncing, but I don't know if I recommend it. I like the fact that it does auto lip sync, so you drop in a bunch of mouths and then it syncs it to the audio. There's a simplicity about it that I kind of like, but it's expensive. It's $300, $400 something bucks.
Yeah.
And the only time I felt comfortable dropping that was when it's I'm taking this seriously, but it's not really for new people. I honestly, part of me almost suggests get a monthly thing and then just do it for a month, if you have a summer break or something, and then when it's over you just or you do a free trial or something, because sometimes people get into the hobby and then they're doing it for a while and they're this isn't really for me, and so there's kind of an initial period where just get trial stuff and so see if you like it, and if you don't like it, just don't continue.
Yep, test it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Test it out, people.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, if you could make an adventuring party with a bunch of PCs you have played before, what kind of shenanigans would they get into?
Oh my God.
Oh Lord. I think I mean, I think all of us make pretty chaotic characters, so it's a wonder if they'd even like get anywhere.
I think Dingo and I had a discussion of if Abserd and Sips were in an adventuring
God.
party, and it's like
Lord.
that would last all of like 15 minutes before they
So
just.
imagine cursing, like touching Abserd with a
Abserd.
cursed hand, like.
Yeah.
Extra curse, Abserd. He would be unstoppable.
It'd be even more absurd. It would just be something crazy. And I mean, to be honest, it would 15 minutes, I'm pretty sure, until he kills him.
I'm pretty sure the
Just
world
with the
would explode.
annoyance.
Oh God, yeah. I can't.
Or he casts
God.
silence or something.
Is Abserd is Abserd part wild magic sorcerer? Like, is it in there? Please tell me it's in there.
Oh, Abserd. He is. I'm trying to remember. I think he is wild magic sorcerer. I do
Of
remember
course he
having to
is.
roll
Oh, no.
on the table when he
Oh
did
no.
I think it was a shield spell or something like that, and he had to roll on it.
I think
I always
yes.
do want to know how, if you and I could do a panel where we played those characters. And I feel like if Felix was the DM, he would somehow make it that,
We're chained together.
that we're chained together and Sips couldn't possibly kill you or something like that. He has to put on some kind of
Honestly, if you guys ever did a campaign where all of these chaotic characters were together, I would think it would just be like the villain is actually taking all of you together for the reason of ending the world. Because it would. It's like if I gather all of these people together in one room, the world would explode.
I mean, yeah, just with Sips's luck, that would happen, and it would probably last maybe 3 sessions, and then
Yep.
It's like
it did, though.
it's like an actually doable version of like Loki's plan. Like I didn't think that would work. I just piss all of them off and get them together.
I turned on the karaoke machine and then it just, the world exploded. There you go.
yep.
Evil plan.
I have a character I'm playing right now, which is actually the one that you guys played with me, Bree. The big Azamar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
but I'm playing an actual campaign with her now because I wanted to test it out with you guys. So, but she is completely like the straight line person when it comes to anything, and her humor is so dry. I freaking adore it. She's so brutal. She just recently went up to like these mechanical people that were in the campaign, kind of like robots. And it's just like she went straight up to them and it's just, are you alive? Can you eat that? But like very insensitive because you could tell that these people were like very, very cautious and sensitive. And they were just like, you can't just freaking ask them that, Bree. You can't just say, are you an actual person? Like that's so insensitive. And it's like, but she doesn't care. She's just like, why would they be offended by that? I don't understand. That kind of thing. So
it's insane. I actually have the exact same, because I'm also playing an Asimar in my Waterdeep campaign. However, it's a child, so the child has no filter. So we'll just ask
That's the best.
questions. So it's like that, but the opposite end of the spectrum of being too brutal is just it doesn't understand social norms yet. So
those are the best.
Those are the
Anyway,
best.
we should probably move on.
Yeah,
Yes,
next question. Outside of X edition of D&D, what's your favorite tabletop RPG system or would like to try? And I think we probably have to preface this question with talking about how many editions of D&D we've played, like which ones we played, which ones are our favorite, something like that, and then jump into the outside of D&D question.
Well, I personally have only played 3.5 and 5e, which I'm just getting into 5e this year quite a bit. And I really do like 5e because a lot of it reflects a lot of the decisions we made in 3.5 on homebrewing. Just, making things a little simpler, more streamlined, so it's easier for us to handle. As for other tabletops, I haven't played any. Just because I have a group of friends that we just love D&D so much.
Yeah, it's really hard. But I started with 4th and was very confused. And,
You started with Earth?
Like,
which one?
4th
edition.
Oh.
So just like Ben.
I actually have a video on 4th edition D&D coming up. It's my next video.
Imagine like never touching D&D and then like they hand you a sheet and you're like, and they're like, okay, here's combat. What is
This is like Yeah, it's literally just like
It was
giving you
rough.
so much homework and just being like, here's your big pile of books, go for it. And it's like,
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah, it's hard. But mostly 5th edition. So, but I have tried. We're sort of. I say we're running Shadowrun, but we're really not. It's like we absorbed all of Shadowrun's lore. We looked at the mechanics and we were just like,
I actually
let's just use 5th edition.
I get that because I have actually played in some games where it's like I really love Shadowrun lore. The system though,
The system is so up its own butt,
and it's not even. Sometimes it may not even be that it's like a terrible system. Like I'm sure a lot of people play it and love it and stuff like that. It's just the fact that like the group that I have now, they kind of like if we're going to be playing that setting, we're going to do it as a one shot and. I can't teach that system as a one shot. I can't spend 15 minutes and sit down and be like, this person gets it.
So we just did Modern Magic 5e, but with Shadowrun's lore. So that's what we've been doing. So it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's like favorite TTRPGs. I mean, we kind of do that, but we just bastardize everything as 5e. Oh, we do really like Call of Cthulhu. That's also a nice one.
That's the one I want to try. I want to try that.
Cool. Yeah.
We can DMU that one. Then I can. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I've ran Call of Cthulhu as well, and I really like that system because it's like the system has problems, but it's also like really simple. It's very easy to get into, and it's nice to just play a person. You know, like I'm a librarian, and
where you're average, you don't have.
But what's also nice,
scary.
In a way, you also have access to more things because it's usually a 1920s or a modern day setting, and it's like. You have a gun. You can drive a car. You have a flashlight.
Guns are very deadly. My gosh.
And you don't have to worry about having a pack and then you're homeless and you don't have any shelter. You have a home you can go to. And if you want some rope, you probably have some laying around you can just pull out.
And you're not a murder hobo. You actually have a job.
So it's a very unique setting.
You can probably become a murder hobo, but that is in all systems.
That's different. That's how you get arrested.
Yeah, and it's not to say one or over the other. It's just that when you jump to Call of Cthulhu from D&D, it's almost kind of like a breath of fresh. It's like, oh, this is very unique or it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so catered to the horror genre. It's like you can actually really scare people because, you could just one monster could kill you. Like the simplest
the stakes
monster.
are high. The stakes are high.
Me answering the question now. So I played 4th edition for about a year and a half, very confused, and then I jumped to Star Wars. And I was playing that for like 2 years or something. And then we jumped back to 5th edition, loved it, and we've been playing 5th edition ever since. I have played Pathfinder, I've played 3.5, and they are very good systems. I started playing a few sessions of Pathfinder 2nd edition, and it's just, whoa, it's like there's a lot of stuff. It has some interesting ideas. I don't know if it would become my regular thing because it's such a dense system. Like it's very complex. We were actually playing Pathfinder 2nd edition the other day. 3 of the players got infected with venom. And we were just rolling for the venom. And the problem is you had stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and you were rolling to see what stage you were and then taking the damage. And then you'd roll to see, okay, like how, like, here's the duration, here's the onset. Like it's gonna, you get infected and you don't immediately get hurt. It's like a certain ways down. And just explaining that to the players was very complex. And when a rule is just 2d6 poison damage, you just roll it and that's that. But if a rule is like 50 words, you keep having to explain it over and over and over, and it's very difficult to remember.
Exhausting.
But anyway, as far as favorite tabletop RPG systems that are not Dungeons & Dragons that I've played that really like, once again, Call of Cthulhu has been great. I played Mage, which is nice. It's pretty cool. It's very interesting. Very unique setting. Oh, I also played
Mutants and Masterminds.
Mutants and Masterminds, yes, very interesting system. I've talked about it before, where it's like you select what powers you have, and it's free form character creation. You can make whatever you want as long as you can afford it. You can even combine powers together. Someone had a story of where they had a character where they would transform into a bullet, shoot through a wall, and then transform back to normal, and that was their power. Because what they did is they took movement plus damage plus speed or something like that, and combined them all together. So it's a very interesting system. It's just it's so complex and stuff. And
you're trying to break it down so it's simpler for people.
The reality is a lot of people, when they play it, they play a few sessions, it's kind of wacky, zany fun, and then they're like, okay, let's go back to playing a different system. So it doesn't have that kind of longevity, because there's a lot of like min-maxing that kind of plays into it. Not anything bad, it's more just the fact that it's so complex that people prefer to stick to one thing, so that way they don't have to deal with additional rules. So there was that system. There was one system that I got that I was looking at that I'm like, ooh, I think I might want to play it, but like, it's the hardest thing to convince people to play, and I think I'm the only one who'd really want to play this. The system is called Follow. And what it does is, the best way to describe it is a system that is designed in order to make kind of soap opera drama that you see in like TV shows. Where
what?
Yeah. The concept is that all the characters have motives that involve some of the other characters, where it's like my character, like let's say we're playing like the Lion King, like, okay, you're playing a Scar, and then someone else is playing Simba. Scar wants to sow dissent with Simba. He wants to try and convince him that he's, that maybe not trust his father. He wants him to be reckless. And then the father is trying to convince the son, like, hey, you need to be responsible. I want you to behave, blah, blah, blah. And so it's a system where you're playing through different scenes.
Puffin, you just want to write a teen drama. It's okay.
But it's the concept.
This is very like PvP.
The concept, it's almost kind of like social PvP, where there's a center goal that everyone's trying to solve. Like if you were going to play Game of Thrones, you'd use this system, because it's like
it makes sense. Yeah.
But so it's like political intrigue.
Yeah, it's like a political intrigue. I'm the uncle and you're the young ruler, and I'm trying to convince you to behave yourself, and you're just trying to have fun, or something. You think you want to
so this is a system to break up friendships.
Yes, correct.
The monopoly
friendship
tabletop RPGs.
No one wants to play with you.
There's something in the system that's like
go wrong.
There's something in the system about sewing interpersonal relationships that I think is very unique and very interesting. But there's a part of me that like it sort of undermines to some extent the RPGs. Like everyone's trying to solve a goal, and sometimes if you have the game in there trying to like pit people off against each other, like maybe that doesn't work. It's like, it's one of those systems I got and I'm like, ooh, this is kind of interesting, and then I keep reading and I'm like, ugh, I can't get any players for this.
The pitch is always so good, and then you get to the meat of it, and it's like, oh.
I think to me it's also, I've been interested in that idea of playing a game that's like a TV show. It's one of those things that works in theory, but almost is nigh impossible to actually get to the table.
It depends on the players. It depends if everybody's on the same page. And I definitely have it with my group that everybody trusts each other and everybody's working towards a goal of like fulfilling the story. So it really depends on who your players are, and it really depends on your DM.
One of the other things is, one of the reasons I'm interested in that is because it's like, I've been playing traditional Dungeons & Dragons, here's a problem, go and solve it. This one is just so out there in terms of being just so unique, and that was why I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because there have been so many games that I pick up and it's like, oh, it's another dungeon crawl, or another like hack and slash, and so because of that, I'm sort of okay. I've seen it, but there are some really good ones out there.
So we should move on to the next question.
Yes, that is correct. Do you ever feel like the pressure to create art, videos, and other stuff is interfering with your enjoyment of the games?
I think if anything, it's heightened it.
You'd almost want to play more of it.
I totally know what they get at, though, because when I first started my channel, and then I was going into D&D stuff, and I was like, I really don't want it to become a thing where every time I'm at the table, I hope something crazy happens. You know what I mean?
I get
things to happen.
Yeah, like I don't want to ever force myself to make crazy decisions. And I mean, thankfully for what I'm doing on my channel with like retelling a whole campaign, that campaign ended just a couple months after I started YouTube. So it's like all the crazy shit that happened was before I even touched YouTube. So I don't have to worry about it.
And the thing is that it takes so long to make a video, like at least for me, that it's just almost like I have so much crazy stuff that happens in the interim too much potential stories. It's like I don't know.
There's so much content in general.
Yeah, you don't have to incite anything. It just happens.
Yeah.
Although I will say, like, from playing games, there's a lot of stuff that happens in my games. There's just like, this is just a bunch of stuff happening. Like, I don't know if this is going to be funny to people. Like, how do I convince people that this is interesting?
A lot of it's about like just being there, you know? And then when you try to translate it into a video, it starts to get a little muddled and hard to translate.
Yeah, so much is just like...
It's lost.
Downtime, Even though there's good stuff, it's just it gets cut. But I don't think any of you feel pressured. So
the only time I've ever felt like kind of pressured is that sometimes people really like a character and I really like a character, and so I want to bring them back into the story. And I just can't. Like, there's just anytime I can tell when I'm writing to just bring a character back, and that writing always suffers for it. I have actually several times in the narrative, like, thought about bringing Whimsy back into the storyline in some way. He just doesn't fit in any of the other narratives. Like, oh, there's just Naboleth, and he's just there, and he's just, hey guys, how's it going? And then, like, they just leave, you know, or something. And it's, they have not met him. It's just that whenever we're playing, like, every single session, there's always, oh, we're chasing down this villain, and we're gonna run, and, like, what am I gonna do? Like, take a road stop or something? No. So that's always been the toughest part.
Yeah, and I feel like the only pressure that I really get from my videos is sometimes specifically with my stuff, because mine's so story-driven, that a lot of people are just like, oh, I hope this character does this, or I hope they do, like, I hope this happens, and I already know the answer because the campaign's done, and I kind of feel bad where it's like, no, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's cute, really. I mean, people always theory craft, and that should be...
No, I think that's cool, and it's just like, I always feel so bad because I'm like, oh no, I think that's a really cool idea, or I think that's really cool.
Dude,
but
it never happens like the way you expect. Like, it's just how D&D works.
Yeah, and I just have to kind of like come to terms with that, of just being like, no, this is just how it happened, and I just have to kind of tell it like the way it is.
Right.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times viewers are coming at it because they're wanting to watch like a show, and the problem is Dungeons & Dragons games and tabletop RPGs aren't like shows, really. Sometimes there's like retconning or different things that are going on, or it's like, oh, this is a more interesting option, but we didn't do that, or it's like, oh, that's kind of a boring option or something.
Or we forgot about it. Or
yeah.
It's like you have to take into account that these are real people playing real characters, and it's like they make mistakes.
Improv. Yeah.
It's all improv. And yeah.
2 examples of that was one, at the end of the Malachar campaign, the players got split up, and normally that would someone would just cut it, be like, okay, this is done. But the players wanted to reprise their old roles, and so we had to do a thing of like, okay, you get captured and you wake up and you're in this location, blah, blah, blah. And so we had to retcon an ending, which was a very nice bow on the end of it. But it was because the players wanted to come back to their old roles. There is other stuff where sometimes people want the background or the details on certain things. Sometimes I got to be like, guys, there really isn't that much background. Or sometimes this character just shows up. He doesn't have like a whole storyline dedicated to him. He just, there he is, or something. There was
look at him.
There he is.
Look how beautiful he is.
One of the examples.
Mr. NPC guy.
Yeah, one of the big examples was there was our flying whale Bernard, and people are like, where did he come from? Like, he's probably got this really cool backstory. And it comes from the fact that my brother had this animal bag where he could pull animals out of, and he's like, oh, I want to pull out an animal. I'm like, okay, what kind? Like, what about a whale? I'm like, And so he pulls out a whale. And so that's how they have a whale now.
And that was the birth of him.
Sometimes there's not an epic backstory for these things. It's just like, the DM just kind of shrugging and be like, okay.
Yeah, and what would happen is he'd have the whale, they could poof the whale away and then resummon him. And that was why Bernard would just show up and then he's gone, and he shows up. And that, I don't really think the audience gets that joke, but the joke came from the fact that it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to have Bernard do this. Wait, Bernard was with you the whole time? Oh yeah, he was with us. Like, what do you do? Climb up the stairs? And so in the video, he's climbing up the stairs. He's just with them.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question.
Next question.
Yeah, next question. Exciting.
Are there any character concepts that you wanted to use in a role-playing game, but could never get to work or come out the way you wanted? So basically, I guess that means, like, do you have any characters on the backlog that just don't work with, I don't know, the campaigns that you're playing in, or you got a lot in the back of your mind that you like, but they don't quite work?
I mean, I have a character that I still have to play more of, and I haven't really, like, played much of her, and I've only played her once with you, Ben, which was...
Oh, was it Pepper?
Yeah, it was Pepper.
I loved Pepper. Pepper was great.
Who's Pepper?
Pepper is a small halfling monk who she has, like, broken English and has been living out in the bush forever, and then she kind of came out, but she's terrified of magic. So anything with magic, she just instantly, like, freezes up. She's a tough concept because you have to take into account of being in a party.
You
have to be...
It's a rough one to deal with.
I will say she also has that thing of, like, she's going to pick a fight. She sizes out the biggest person in the room and just immediately runs in, just right to the face, just starts punching them. Kind of a thing.
She's like that. She's definitely like Pepper.
She's all your characters, for the most part, are like kick down doors, kick your teeth in type characters. Like,
I think we all have a few concepts we really enjoy playing.
Yeah, though, I mean, she's definitely, like, she's one of my favorite with just the whole, like, being scared of magic. I like that concept. And she's also another one of those brutal, like, characters of just being, not knowing social norms. Like, she'll go into a house and just be like, this is Pepper's house now. You know, like, she doesn't understand that you have to buy the house and that it's not her house.
She's got like an Aarakocra brain.
Yeah, exactly. She's got one of those things going on.
If it was just laying there, I can take it. It's fine.
Yeah. But I've played, like, a whole roster of characters. Like, my bird Cooper was very sweet and very nice, but
that is the exception. No, I'm just kidding.
Lesia, like the Drider, she is not for conflict at all. She's she's in the back, and she's just very sweet and very kind, and she has very low self-esteem. Because she's like one of those characters where she'll go into a village and she's a Drider, so of course everybody's like, oh my god,
terrifying.
Yeah, so she's terrifying in general, but she's actually neutral good. She's the one Drider that's neutral good. And so when she goes into a village, they're instantly like kill the beast, and she's like, no, I get that. I understand. You know, it's like, it's fine.
It's okay. I'm fine.
I'll leave.
Meanwhile, she's dodging the swords.
Yeah, she's like, no, I'll leave. It's okay.
I want to see this character.
She is a sweetheart. She's just a complete sweetheart.
Cute. As far as the concept, I haven't... There's several monster concepts I haven't been able to use before because they're like ticking time bombs. Like, I have one that's like that's I still haven't gotten to use yet. That's like a wizard that's slowly turning into a mind flayer and is trying to prevent. It's like Cronenberg sort of situation where characters has to fix their infection or they might hurt the party. And that's kind of a hard concept to, like, pitch to a DM. Even though I had it approved several times, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know about for this campaign.
I mean, I kind of did that with
something else in.
You know,
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
he's kind of like, his whole thing was just like trying to keep his curse under control, and that was always an issue. But he's also like a jerk. Like his concept is that he's a jerk, and so he would, you know, curse people for fun because he's an asshole like that.
Yeah. Whenever I have stuff like that happen in a video, people are always asking, like, what alignment is so-and-so?
I know. Yeah, like, it's like we never pay attention to alignments as much. It's just
no, we don't either. I mean,
I'm the alignment that I can do whatever I want whenever I want to.
I'm just chaotic. That's what my freaking alignment is.
Yes, that's like a lot of our players are chaotic in alignment, including the DM.
Yeah.
Oh no. What about you, Ben? Do you have a concept? that you wanted to try but haven't?
As far as that, actually, the funny thing, I've been thinking about it, and I've been GMing so much recently that I have not been creating any character concepts recently. Which is fine. I love GMing. I actually have to start going back a little bit. Sometimes a character concept of like, oh, this character's like evil, and very difficult to fit into a campaign, a character that's evil.
All paladins with one necromancer.
It's not even that I want to like betray the party, but just the fact that if they're good aligned, I know that I'm going to be the kid in the corner who's like, they're hanging out and my character doesn't get to be with them. They're saving the puppies and I don't want to save the puppies or something like that. Or it's tough to fit that kind of character into a good aligned party because you're automatically putting yourself into the corner. Sometimes
you'd have to have a group that would naturally bring that character to the good side, like, or something. Yeah. Like you'd have to coerce your character into doing good things slowly. Like it would be a character build, I think.
Yeah, because even then there's a part of me that would feel like they're trying to change my character or something like that. And I would feel really awkward if they did that. Like I'm evil, blah, blah, blah. And they're all good characters. And once again, there was one time we did it. Evil lined party, and even then it was like, these guys are too evil for me. Like I'm just like diet evil. Like these guys are like,
you would have to,
that's a session 0 thing you gotta cover.
The way I would handle that, it's kind of like, what's the goal when you make that kind of character? It's like, do you want the character to be evil all throughout, or do you want them to actually have like a character arc of eventually becoming like still are shitty, but they have a good side to them now.
Yeah.
So you'd have to make that decision.
I've kind of avoided evil characters. It's just like, it's not really my thing. Sometimes it's just a character concept is like not high enough level or something. Oh, we're starting this out and it's like we're all 3rd level. And I have this idea that's going to work great at 15th level.
Oh, yeah. It's like, I have killed 9 dragons. I'm level 1.
So level's a problem. There was a character that I used once that I really liked that I did not get to use again. His name was Mary, and his concept, he might end up in a video. His plot line is that he was a druid, but he's a druid that used to be an animal and then drank from a spring and then was turned human. And is just kind of going around learning about human life and stuff like that. And he's past the part where he knows what pants are and stuff like that, and personal property and money. He understands that part. I'm not rewinding him back too far because I've seen
he's not feral.
Yeah.
He used to be a dog actually, and then he drank from a spring. And then she's like, okay, go out and make friends with human. Okay, I will make friends. And we will all be a people pack. And we'll be going around. It's going to be great. He was very optimistic, very loyal, very friendly. Always wanted to talk to people. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Oh, you are so smart and kind and nice and very friendly. And I really liked hanging out with you. Okay. It's like, oh, we're going to do something else. We kind of need some alone time. It's like, okay, can I go with you? Like, I will go with you.
Like stares at you. Okay, where are we going?
When he first introduced himself, he was like, hello there, I am a dog that drank from a spring, and now I am a human. But I'm not supposed to tell anyone, because the lady in the woods said, make sure you don't tell anyone, keep it a secret. And I said, okay, I will keep it a secret and not tell anyone. And she said, Mary, it's really important that you don't tell anyone. And she got really scary. And I said, don't worry, I won't tell anyone.
Oh my gosh. Yes, oh my god. I need a whole campaign of this character, please.
See, that seems like a PC that would be fun to put with all of our other PCs.
But
my god.
The only other problem is that he fits well into a group. It's just the fact that he's not gonna, I don't know if I could have him, kill people and murder people and torture people for information.
It's more like an NPC thing, where it'd be better as an NPC than it would be a player sometimes.
Well, it depends on the group.
Oof.
It always depends on the group.
Yeah. Always depends on the group. If your group is gonna be playing a campaign of murder,
if they're all murder hobos, you might have a tough time. Yeah. Unless, because it seems like he's very naive, you would totally just play that up and be like, oh yeah, these orphans, they were evil orphans. And it's like,
yes.
Yeah, but then you could have a really cool thing where it's just he realizes that everybody was lying to him.
But it's also, I love that character. I want him to be innocent, and I know that after a campaign, his character would not be innocent. It'd be difficult to maintain that per se, and I don't know, he would probably undergo a very severe and sudden character change.
Playing as a child character that's naive, and it's like, oh, that's been a problem with me as well. It's like, oh, you had to murder a lot. Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I had a character that I just I finished playing that campaign a while back, but it's my bird, the toucan, the Cooper, the one that you did, yes. Jess. And my goal for the entire campaign was to keep his innocence, because he is a very optimistic, like, everybody's good, deep down kind of guy. And I managed to keep it at the end. So, but it was hard. I had to work on it.
Yeah.
I had to actually break him a couple times. And in the way of like emotionally, I had to like make him flip his
Did he
perspective.
actually kill people though? I mean, did he
He killed one person in the entire campaign.
Oh.
Yeah.
That must have been rough for him.
It was a really bad person. It was the one who killed his friend. So, and that was like...
That would do it.
That was a moment of him losing his shit and just completely... He eviscerated that person in one move. With his magic, he just like lit them on fire to ash. Like they were
that always makes it such a cooler moment too.
It was. He just freaking screamed and like that person was done. And that was the only person he ever killed. And it was a big deal, obviously. And I knew that when I would have him kill somebody, it was going to be a big freaking deal. And it had to be somebody that would deserve it, essentially. So
well,
it was, yeah.
That's actually a good lead into the next one, which is who are your favorite characters, and also maybe which ones are your favorites that your friends have played as. So, is that one your favorite? Or
I mean, he's definitely one of my favorite just because it's like the whole concept of him was trying to keep him innocent, with just believing that everybody had a little bit of good in them. So he was a fun character. I actually made it that like he was a sorcerer and his main spells were like enchantments and illusions. So he could do those two. He never really did aggressive spells. He eventually, the only time he ever used an aggressive spell is if he tried to hurt somebody, and that was very rare. That was really, really rare. And it was evocation, fire magic, if so. So it's kind of like, he was a very interesting character just because I had to like figure out what his deal was. Like I didn't really understand who he was until like a couple arcs or whatever, and then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he doesn't use evocation. He uses all enchantments and illusions, and he just like tricks people into things to get around certain concepts. So he was definitely a very interesting character to play, and he had a really great character arc where he kept the innocence. However, he still had a lot of like doubts, and he got to a point where he was just like, maybe everyone is bad, or maybe the world sucks, or something like that. But I think eventually
he's best boy, best
he just,
boy.
Yeah, and then eventually it just all came back to being like, no, you know what? There is like color in the world and stuff like that. So that was his whole kind of arc.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah,
he was a really great character to play, and I really loved him. And I think the second question, which is like, what's your favorite character that your friend has
played?
Yeah, which is was his friend.
The sidekick.
The sidekick. Well, not sidekick because we're both players. This was This was a 2v1. Okay. This was a 2v1, which was like 1 DM and 2 players. And
that means you really get bonded to the other player.
For sure. And that was my I was playing with my boyfriend, and he was playing Ludwig, which was Hellbred, which is like
the demon boy.
Yeah, and how they became friends was because Hellbreds are scary, and he's a Hellbred paladin. So he's very confusing because when a cleric looks at him, they think evil, but when they test, he's actually good. Like if they test alignment or whatever.
Alignment
check, so he's very confusing. But the whole way the characters met was because everybody was terrified of him, and then my character just went right up to him and said, "Hi, I'm Cooper," and then just like they made.
Oh, that's so perfect.
They became friends, and he was like the only one who was nice to him, so that's how they became friends, and it was adorable and
precious.
Yeah, yeah, it was just like those two
friendship.
They're so good. They were so good together, and that's definitely one of my favorite characters I've ever played with was Ludwig, because Ludwig couldn't lie. He wasn't allowed to lie. So the entire campaign, he didn't tell one lie.
Oh my gosh, that's so rough. Yeah, I've had characters like that too, where it's like, oh, it's so hard.
Those are so rough. They're so hard, but it was really
it's stuff
good.
like this which makes you realize what a terrible person you are. Like, I lie all the time.
Well, no, I mean, it's different. Look, you don't lie in real life, really. Well, you try not to. Jesus.
Well, I meant that it's like whenever you play a character, there's so many times where lying would just solve this problem.
Yeah.
Of like,
oh, totally.
The Nazis are knocking on the door. It's like, is there someone home? Like, no, or something like.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah, you gotta be careful when you're playing a character that can't lie. And a lot of it was him just being silent. Like he had to leave the room.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, silence. Just best medicine.
Or he really figured out how to word it that he wasn't lying. Like those were really smart moments whenever he played Ludwig, and I was just like, God, you're like, that was his challenge to himself, was like, okay, I'm gonna make a character that can't lie. So yeah.
Good tip. It's like, if you want a challenge, make a character that can't lie. That's it's rough.
Definitely.
But what about you, Puffin?
Okay.
You got a favorite?
So favorite characters that I've done was Mary was one of them, and then I really liked Aligaros, he was my first 5e character, and he was just kind of a fun-loving character who would kind of rush into things, and all the other players were sort of more like level-headed, and they kind of were like the parrot, kind of like making sure they didn't get into trouble. It was really the group dynamic that kind of made that character shine, because it was great talking with everyone else. How they would have a lot of really great lines of dialogue where it's like my character every night would end up in prison. And they're like, why do you keep ending up in prison every single night? And it's like, I don't know. I drink till I'm blackout drunk. And then the next day I wake up in prison. Like, what do you expect me to do about that? Hey, and
we have to keep bailing you out.
But it's actually
fun.
the out of game thing was that I had you roll carousing, and it's a percentile, and I kept rolling jail over and over. And it's like 5% chance, but I just kept hitting, or 10% maybe, but I just kept hitting it over and over. And so that was the excuse, was he just kept getting drunk.
And then you fell in love with the jailman. You were like, Warden.
And then a love story broke out.
It's a love story.
I keep coming back.
Character development, damn it.
You can't let me go, can you? That's taking me out on a date.
By your love.
Remember that romantic where you're hauling me off by moonlight?
With handcuffs?
In handcuffs.
Yeah, oh jeez.
But
favorite player? Friend you played?
The player, I remember there was Flynn, who was played by my friend, who was the Aarakocra, who would always like, oh, I told us it was a good idea the whole time. He was kind of the character that was made for other people to hate, kind of a thing. And then he'd always fly away out of the fight, and then he'd brag to people like, oh, if you had wings, you'd get to be able to get away, but you can't, or something like that. And he was a bard, so of course he sung, and we hated him. But he was you love to hate. And then we also made jokes about him where it was like, oh, he thinks he's a person. But then there was another character who, when we were playing Pokemon, who made a security for a school, and he took his job like way too seriously. He had like the sunglasses, like Officer Blair reporting for duty. It's like, you're gonna be I need to get answers for these kids. Look, you're just supposed to, they're going to detention. Okay, that's fine. And then he had a mag light, and he just like hit people with them. And he was like, Officer Blair, like, and he'd be like, we're on the job. And he gets in to like his little cart, and it's like, beep, 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 and he's chasing the kids on his little cart. So,
bless.
I really like that character.
There's so many good. Oh, jeez, I don't know if I can pick, man. It's like picking a favorite child. I do really like the one that you drew, Puffin, Silas, the warlock, for my Shadowrun Modern campaign.
Oh,
because
him, yeah.
He's the guy that unfortunately he used to be on one of those terrible haunted sort of like ghost-busting shows where they would go in and they like shout at ghosts and like hope that things happen.
Come out, ghosts!
But our campaign is like sort of like magic is magic re-emerged in the modern day, and so ghosts started to become real. And so he actually made one angry and got sort of possessed, and so that's sort of his patron is the lady, and causes all sorts of electronics to go nuts. Can't recommend enough to like do a modern campaign because it's so fun. You can come up with so many dumb concepts that are amazing. As far as for like players, there's so many good ones. In my Waterdeep campaign, we have a player that's currently playing a Muppet.
Oh my god.
A
cloth.
All right, I'm gonna need some explanation for this.
It was like a situation where the hatred in this puppet was so much that it came to life because
freaking manifested.
It was basically this puppet was made by this couple that couldn't have children, but eventually they had children, so they got rid of the puppet. So the puppet was so angry, it sprung to life, this terrifying marionette cloth puppet thing.
Oh, good. It has to be a marionette.
Yeah, and this thing is running around and is like, it's a monk, so it can punch and move really fast.
Oh no,
so you
it
can just
touches
imagine
you, it
this,
slaps
like, it skitters around. It's like, why?
It uses simple weapons! Simple weapons!
Oh my gosh.
No, these are all long swords. Oh, we're fine. No.
Oh my gosh! One of the things that it said, like, because we use her exclusively for any kind of intimidation, Molly Pop with the puppet.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
because
like
it doesn't get scarier.
If there was a puppet talking to me, I'd start answering some questions.
Oh gosh, it's like one of the things. Like all she did was just walk up to the interrogation subject and says, "You know, you don't need all your teeth."
Oh god. Like, ah! What about your toes? Do you mind missing a toe?
It's just scary, and yeah, she's got a teeth collection. It's terrifying.
Oh god,
it's so memorable. It's just cheese.
So
she comes up with the craziest concepts, I swear.
So, Dingo, I just got an email from PAX Unplugged. We got the panel. It just came in just now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We're scheduled for Saturday, 11:30 a.m.
Fuck yeah. Just before lunch.
Nice. Hype. Get the hype.
I'm hyped.
All right. And I'll be there. I'll just be like, yeah.
You cheer us on.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Yeah, perfect. Next question.
How do you begin a campaign? I'm about to start GMing for friends after literally a decade of not playing, and I'm worried that I've forgotten how a story works.
Oh, jeez. Well, it has a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. Who wants to take it first?
Oh, jeez.
How do we start this question?
It's kind of a big question. Like, because it's
I have
honestly, to begin a campaign, maybe you should just, like, have a session 0 with your friends and just be like, so guys, what would you be interested in playing? Because we've done that before.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
For me, personally, when I start a campaign, I make the players make their characters first. What do they want to play?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's like, what do they want to play, and do they have a backstory? I prefer to get a backstory, not a big extensive one, just something along the lines of, like, they were a merchant, and this happened, and you know?
Yeah, like a good paragraph chunk.
Yeah, because as soon as I have those, I can start to build my campaign. Because I personally build all my campaigns and stories around players. You don't have to. This is just a preference. So I kind of, like, I take into account of what would intrigue them, just based on their characters' backstories. You know, like, if their character is more attuned to fighting a mob boss, then, well, I'm going to center a lot of the plot around this particular mob boss that they're consistently trying to get at. And, you know, stuff like that. I make kind of like the bones of the campaign first. So I have like this big overall kind of thing that's going to happen regardless if the players interact or not. You know, it's like the world moves on its own, right? So you kind of have your bones, and then your players kind of, they fill in the meat. and stuff like that. At least this is how I run my stuff. Obviously, people can do it any way they want, but this is how I particularly structure a story, is that everything will move regardless of if they interact with the world or not. And then, if they decide to say, no, I don't want to pay attention to this, that's okay. That just means they're not interested, and I may shift the story if I want them to be more interested in my campaign. But overall, I'm like, no, this army's coming. It's like, this is gonna happen.
It ain't stopping.
Are you interested in this story if this woman is going to die? No, not really. Well, what if this woman's going to die and these 12 kittens? No, not really. Like, what?
And then I just kind of go, okay, well, they're on another continent somewhere else now. It's like, they don't have to worry about them. But it's all about the bones. Building just an overall, like, one line that best describes your campaign. Is kind of like an army is invading. That's all you need to say, and then you just build.
Yeah, you don't need to flesh out. Yeah, if you over prep a campaign, like you'll just be ending up like tossing a lot of it because your players will definitely do something stupid, and then yeah,
they will, and then they'll
guilty
also
as charged.
Yeah, and they're also like, maybe they won't be interested in what you're making as much.
There's that too.
You have to take into account where it's like you want to make sure everybody's having fun.
I think one of the biggest things you always got to fight against is apathy. Is just like, why do we care about this thing? It's always an uphill fight to try and keep players engaged constantly.
And like making a campaign is a collaboration.
Yeah,
it's a dance you make with your players. You can't be over here like reading a novel. So don't. Go write a novel.
Yeah. If you have fears of your story being messed up, then you might as well just write a novel. Where, like, I find DMing is very invigorating in the way that, like, I don't know what they're gonna do. I kind of, like, throw stuff at them and be like, what sticks? What doesn't? What are they interested in? Oh, they're more interested in the fire plane or something. Like, they really want to discover the fire plane. It's like, okay, then I'll make a whole arc around the fire plane because they seem very excited about it. So, stuff like that. So you kind of have to listen to your players, and your players have to trust you too. So
sometimes it's just like, all you need to start is just sort of an interesting premise that gets them hooked, and then you sort of flesh it out from there. After the session 0, then you start
build,
as Dingo said.
Make the bones, let them fill in the meat.
To me, yes. I'm going to answer the question like very narrowly and imagine that as far as begin playing, like just the first 2 hours, because I know that's something I always have a problem with, is that first like hour or two, just getting into the storyline can be tough, especially if people don't really know how stuff works or it's difficult to get into. Let's say that there's a storyline where it's like, oh, the king's daughter has gotten kidnapped by goblins and is taken off to this mountain. A lot of times the way that people start the narrative is like, oh, you're in a town, you're wandering around, and then you play out a few scenes in the town, and then you play out a few scenes at the tavern, and then there's a person who comes down and talks to you, and then you go to the king. For me, and then eventually the mission, he offers a mission, you have to accept, or something. And for me, that I don't necessarily like doing that as much anymore, because it feels like if you got a 4 hour...
start it on the mountain.
Yeah.
See what happens.
There's different ways to start it. Like, one is the mountain, where it's just like, you guys accepted this quest, he sent you out, and you're on the mountain on the way there. The other way is, like, we start you in front of the king, and you have just accepted it. And the reason why I'll sometimes start with the king is because sometimes the players do like to begin with a little bit of role-playing or asking some questions of, like, what are we going to need? Like, what details do we need to go over first? So sometimes if I kick them too far into the story, it's always that, like, you're trying to figure out where's the middle ground. I don't like rewinding it too far back. If you've ever seen, like, fiction or like fan fiction or something, where
it's so hard to get going.
They start it with someone waking up in the morning, like, oh man, nice day outside. Woo! I go take a shower, look outside. Man, it's a nice day. Takes a drink, and then you're like 5 pages.
You only got so many hours for a session.
No,
okay.
No, that's so boring. And so
I would, and particularly for, I think veteran groups might actually be okay with maybe even starting like super early or something, and then you get the thing, or like where have you guys been?
They know where they're going.
Yeah,
they know where they're going.
I feel like the starting super early thing is like a session 0, where you could have a test thing where you get to know each other's characters, like that maybe you've been adventuring for like a little while and you kind of know. And then you can start like on the path to the mountain or something.
Even then, with me, like if I was going to start before the king, it'd be like on the way to the city, you get jumped by bandits, or something, and then later on, you find out that the king's daughter is missing, and you got to go rescue him. But it's also new players prefer kind of starting a little bit later in sort of the storyline, and then in addition, I like giving the players a goal because sometimes people who are new to Dungeons & Dragons or haven't played in a while. You show them this game and it's like, okay, you're standing in a field, and it's like, okay, what do I do? And they get really confused. So you have to say, you're trying to figure out where the goblins are. You're standing in the field. Like the second they get a goal, that's when they start playing the game.
They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Just in my campaign, the very first, it was just 2 characters. So I have 2 players, then it's me. So I have 2v1 right now. And I had it where one player was hunting the other player. Like the other player was accused of murder, and so pretty much what's that? My friend was hunting my other friend, and they eventually, got together. And then the player's like, I didn't murder them, and they're like, well, let's try to figure it out. And then they kind of like their characters naturally worked the mission together of being like, why are they accusing you of murder and stuff like that, but they still don't trust each other. And I thought that was way more interesting than just having them show up at a bar or something. It's like, no, you have you have to fight each other. PvP first.
Go.
Yeah, right off the bat.
It's good. It's always fun when you especially starting at a bar is often hard, even though it's the quintessential. It's like sometimes,
which is funny because I've actually never started at a bar.
Really?
Never.
Well, like because sometimes like you can be given a directive, but then like there's so many things that can happen in that situation, especially for really new players. That can be a little bit overwhelming.
So
sometimes,
I started at a tavern once. There was a little bit of a funny story. I was playing Gods Among Us or something like that. I forget the name of the story, but you're like an Olympian god that is among like mortals playing this game. And I'm like, we're just like 3 gods hanging out at a tavern. And then this human comes in with another human is like, well, everyone in here is a slave now because they go around, they collect slaves. Like, okay, get into the cart. We're like, who does this guy think he is? Like, and we just roll up on him, and then he pulls out his little gaff stick and like bops me once, and he has an ability that shuts down every single god power that I have for a minute. I'm like, well, this fight went south really quickly.
Oh no.
See, that's more interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was your guys' first ever D&D experience? Like, what was the first session you ever did? You guys remember?
Yeah,
I mean,
I remember it very crystal clear.
I remember it very vaguely, and it was like a little bit of like sadness. Well, it was okay. Puffin, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Well, how long have you played D&D? I guess that comes with it.
That's the other reason is because I've been playing D&D for I think like 6 years. So I'm actually very recent. I remember I was talking to Dingo and we had this conversation like, oh, how long have you been playing? And this was like 2 years ago. I'm like, I've been playing it for like 4 years or something. And you're like, oh, I did not know that. I've been playing this.
Which is crazy because that means I've played D&D longer than you.
Yeah, correct. Because it's
which
like
blows my mind.
People think I've been playing longer than I have, but I'm actually like very like new. Like I did not grow up with Dungeons & Dragons. I came in like I was out of college by the time I got into Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, I was like, how do you count it? Because I started a game that was like in college, like we just like did like a one shot or a 2.
Oh,
and
no,
then,
I get what you're saying.
Does that count? Because it was like, that was like 5 years ago or more. So like, does that count? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, but like playing in hardcore has been like 2 years, I guess, or not, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Where we do it every week.
Oh yeah.
So,
but anyway, for the question for me, my first ever D&D experience. So I started. It was 4th edition. One of my friends said he had been watching Acquisitions Incorporated, and he's like, he heard about Dungeons and Dragons. I had been watching Counter Monkey from Spoonie, and they're like, hey, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Do you want to come? Do you know what it is? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And actually, he had posted like, hey, reading these at work. So he posted Dungeons and Dragons, and then I'm like, oh, I recognize that game. And so that's how I got into his game. And he ran a session, and I really liked the camaraderie. I thought it was so unique, so different from any other game I had ever played. I really liked being in character. I really liked the exploring the dungeon, talking to people, the dialogue, the fact that it's cooperative, and whenever you play like a competitive game, sometimes people feel like you don't feel happy when you're winning because you're winning, and you don't feel happy when you're losing because you're losing. And so sometimes in competitive games, it could be you get burnout from them very quickly. But with Dungeons and Dragons, you can play it every single week, and it has that longevity. But so I played it. I had fun. The one thing which I hated was I did not like the system because it was complex. It was complicated. I was like. And the other thing is, like, a character would go down, and then it's like, oh, they're fine, they just get back up again. It's like, ooh, this looks really scary, but then you pull back the mechanics, and it's actually not that scary. Like, oh, you get stabbed in the chest, and then, oh, healing spell, it's fine, or something. And if you're a new player, it's like, oh, okay, And there's a reason why they have to do that, but it was the first time I played it, and plus, 4th edition, like, it was so complicated, and there's a lot of rules, and we said like, okay, we're just going to learn the rules, and the next time we're going to come back, it's going to be more fun. And we just, from the day I started to the day I stopped playing 4th edition, I just struggled with the rules and it's also because of the way that the status effect system in that would work, where you'd hit someone, and you give them a status effect, and then you'd hit them again, and they get a different status effect. And so now they have to keep track of 2 or 3 different status effects, and everyone does that. So it was
very complicated. You literally started out on the frickin' like, hey, let's try to, ease you into this. Here's like 12 books, and here's all their sheets, and here, it's just like, you severely, in a way, like handicapped yourself at that moment of playing 4th off the bat. But
but after we played 4th, I played 3.5, and that was such an easier, simpler system to get into, because I was playing as a fighter, and I'd fire my bow, and I'd hit someone, and it was always surprising. Like I'd play them back to back, and it's like I understand more like what's going on in 3.5 than I felt in 4th. But anyway, I'm not talking about additions, more just talking about my experience. Was I loved being with friends, I loved playing. Also, 8 players, new DM.
Oh my God.
No one's played. No one has ever played Dungeons and Dragons.
That's rough. That's so rough.
And so someone will ask like, hey, I'm supposed to have, there's something called AC. What's my AC? And it's like, oh, look in the book. It says AC is armor class. Okay, cool. What is armor class? Like, but what is it though? Like, it says you look up your class to see what it is. Okay, cool. It doesn't tell me I'm a barbarian. It doesn't tell me what my AC is.
Yeah, because you can't find it.
Or it'll say, it says I have a +1 to it.
Yeah,
okay, so your AC's +1 then. Okay, there you go. Your AC's +1. So whenever you roll your die, you add a +1 to that.
What? Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
Whenever I call for an AC check, you just add a +1.
Well, that's rough. Yeah, it's a lot like mine. My first experiences.
That was, oh, jeez. Do you want to go, or should I go?
You can go. I asked you. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Mine was, I think it was either sophomore or junior year in college, where it was like, D&D night, come and try it. And I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. We like other tabletop games. We were very much into like all of the Geek and Sundry was taking off then, and there was a lot of love for tabletops. And it was gradually building up, and so we're like, oh, okay. So me and like, I think 2 other friends went. We had never tried it before, and so we sat down at the table, and he's like, okay, cool, how's it going? There was 2 other veteran players that were jazzed to play.
And thank God there was veterans there.
They weren't all confused, and the DM had been playing for a while. However, it was 4th edition still. I think maybe 5th edition had maybe just come out, or I'm not sure. But regardless, they were using 4th edition, and I was very on the outside. I'm very bad at math, so I was like looking at this, all of this, and like it's like. So he asked, like, do you want to make a character, or do you want to make like a sheet, or just have a pre-gen sheet? No, I'll just take a pre-gen sheet. And so I did. I took a bard. I was like, that sounds fun to play. You're singing at someone to kill them. That's interesting. It was a bard, half elf. The DM clearly cared because all the pre-gens were very very lovingly made. It had like a missing eye that could come out as like this robotic spider. It was amazing. It was really cool. And however, we like the other two new people wanted to make their characters. So I was sitting there for like probably 2 hours.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's like a 4-hour thing.
I was like, oh no.
I forgot this, but before I played that one session, we had a previous session where we tried to make characters and we spent 3 hours and couldn't make them.
I know, yeah.
I did that too.
And this was a one shot. It was a one shot. And it was like, oh no. So I was sitting there like very confused, like, wow, this takes a long time to do. And I was trying to like look over the sheet while they were trying to make characters, and I was like, wow, this seems complicated.
Yeah,
because I was hearing all of this, like, okay, roll for your this, for your charisma bonus, and I was getting overwhelmed by all the rules. And it was like very scary because they were having to calculate their whole character. So we finally got to play after like 2 hours. It was a very arduous journey. Like I can remember traveling for like 7 days and like having to mark off things on the sheet constantly.
Oh,
no real encounters that much.
Yeah.
It was just traveling, and then finally getting to like this floating island in the sky. And every time, like the two veterans, like they knew what they were doing. They're like, "Hey, check this out." We had the rogue that was a rogue and was just hamming it up every single time. See, look what cool thing I can do! Like, look at me, I'm awesome. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Not much of a team player, more like, I'm the coolest.
Like a showboating?
So would constantly run ahead and just do something and like, okay, you did the thing. You beat the room. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's
yeah.
It was rough. It was like the veterans like took over and we were just sitting there very confused.
Yeah, just twiddling your thumbs, just like don't really know.
So that was my first experience with D&D, was just sort of sitting there for a long time.
Yeah.
The DM was very good. It was just, it was a rough setup.
Yeah.
But my next one I think that I played in was like a Frozen one shot that some DM had made.
Oh my God.
And it was so much better, where we had killed Olaf and like it was like a dark Frozen.
Finally.
Weird.
Your time has come.
It was weird, and it was a lot better. And I was like, okay, this is something that's actually good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a question. When was the first time that like you heard about Dungeons and Dragons?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a hard
ingrained
concept,
into fantasy culture now.
Because here's the thing is that I had never heard of this shit. Like, growing up, like, never heard of it. And then it was not, like, I think people would reference it, but I didn't get it. And then it was not until it was, like, the Countermonk and the Spoonie videos that he actually explained, like, this is an RPG, this is what it is. I'm like, oh, and then sometimes I'll go back and there'll be a reference to it. I'm like, oh, that's what they were talking about the whole time, but.
Oh, I think it was, like, in like a summer Bible camp where it was one of the things you shouldn't do.
That's the best way to get people involved in Dungeons and Dragons is you sit down, you educate them. Like, if you play this game, you'll be out slaying orcs and running around gathering gold. It was
that, and like, Harry Potter was like, you shouldn't do that. And I was like, I don't like this person now.
Yeah, I don't even know when I first heard about Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, because I started in high school. I think I've been playing for at least 8 years, if not a little bit more. But when I was in high school, my friend was like, hey, my sister, she plays a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. We should give it a go. He'd been hearing really funny stories about playing it. We were all just like he had actually tried to make us play Dungeons and Dragons for like 2 years, but we were all just like,
It looks. Look at the math. There's numbers on that sheet.
Yeah, it wasn't even just that. It was just mostly because we were lazy and we were just like, no, I'd rather play video games or something. Until eventually he convinced us and was just like, please, I have all the books. Let's just do it. And he was the DM. And we played, our very first session was, I think I was a cleric. And first of all, don't know what a cleric was. Like if they're like, hey, I need healing. And I was like, okay, cool. What do I do? And the DM didn't know either. Like he like none of us knew what we were doing at all. None of us knew what we were doing with playing. We had one set of dice that we had to pass around.
They were only D4s. We couldn't roll above.
We only had one D20 that we consistently just had to like, okay, now you roll. And then you give it back to the DM and they roll. And then just like...
Yeah.
I think I remember, I've heard this story, and I think I remember part of the story involves the GM being upset, like, why did you guys bring dice? It's like, we were supposed to bring dice?
Yeah, it's like, we didn't even understand that concept. We were just like, what? And then, like, our very first encounter was a group of goblins, and... we managed to kill, there was 3. We managed to kill 2 of them, and then one goblin managed to knock every single one of us out.
Oh, God.
We had one goblin against us, and we all got knocked out, and then he captured us all.
That's...
That was...
oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That's pretty awesome.
It was quite amazing, and I was like, how did we... And even like my friend who's the DM is like, I don't understand how you all got knocked out by one fucking goblin. It's like...
Horatio Castiglione Maximiliano. That's where the joke in one of the videos, I was talking about a goblin that just parries everything and just starts knocking people out. And he has a swashbuckler hat. The joke, every single group has fought a Horatio Castiglione Maximiliano. It is anytime you have a goblin that just can't get hit and just is downing player after player who is just the dice roller.
But it was my first encounter. But it was my first encounter, so it's like everybody was screaming. But I guess that's just like a consistent thing in my campaigns, is everybody screaming all the time.
I think that's the norm. It's screaming. There's
the panic.
A healthy amount of D&D comes with screaming.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Next question.
Next question. That's what is the most evil thing you've done as a DM? Evil as in like, I suppose I interpret this question as one that sort of broke your player.
Okay. I have a story, and I'm actually not proud of it.
Oh, no.
I've learned not to do this, but what happened is that the players in one of my games would ask NPCs to help them, like, give me this, give me that. Like they'd walk into a room, there's a sword on the wall, and they're like, that's mine, and they take it, and it's like, oh, that's mine. And the reason also is that they just keep using persuasion rolls, like, can I have this? Persuasion roll. Can I get this? Persuasion roll. Can I get this for free? Persuasion roll. They just constantly were looking for a crit, or not even a crit. They'd be like, 15, I get it for free, or something like that. And I kept having to argue with them and stuff like that. Yeah. There's this one time they were playing a game, and there was this young guy, man. They're just asking this guy for money, and he's an orphan. Like, he was from the previous campaign. He's an orphan. He just has some money, and so he's like, okay, the orphan gives it to you. He's like, haha, and he takes all this guy's money. A month down the line, they get in contact with the orphan again, and it's like, oh, where is he? Like, oh, he moved out of this place. It's like, why did he move out? Like, oh, he couldn't afford rent. They start trying to figure out what happened, and it turns out the orphan had died on the streets, where they took all of his money, and so he couldn't afford rent, so he's living out on the streets for a while, and it was winter, and so he just died in the streets, because it's like they took all his money. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the darkest thing that I did, because they're thinking like this is involved with the plot line, like, oh, this is the villain did something, because like they go to his house and he's not there, and they're thinking like, what happened?
That's rough.
And so they're thinking it's the villain, and then they suddenly realize that he just died on the streets. He was poor. He didn't have any money. Like, you guys took his money from him, and so he doesn't have any money left, because you guys said you needed it. You said, you have to give me the money to save your friend, and so he gave you all his money to save his friend, and
Yeah.
that was it.
See, you could have really nicely done it where you could have still done it. However, you just make him not dead, and you just make him completely homeless. And he's just like, he's on the street, just totally like frozen, shivering, and he's just like, please.
Yeah, I don't know. It was very. I would not do that again. And it was also just because like at that time, it's like it was a really weird thing because it was just like all these stupid persuasion rules. Fine, but you get the money. But it was kind of a natural thing of like he's out of money. Okay, I guess he's on the streets now or something. That's probably the most evil thing that I've done.
I don't know. It's like, yeah, I think it's okay to have consequence. I don't think of him dying would be great, but I totally would be like, yeah, he's on the street. There's consequence. But I also...
Yeah, there's consequence. I don't know. Like, it depends on the campaign.
It depends on the players you're with. It depends on the mood.
But there is something that I've carried over, which is this idea that you can ask NPCs for help, but sometimes it will exhaust that NPC. Yeah. Like, if they keep getting used by the PCs, they're not going to want to help you in the future. Yeah. Like, oh, can we use you to help us with this thing? And they say, okay. But then if you don't get anything in return and they're just getting used, that NPC is like, I'm not helping you again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, yeah, you got to be a little bit more realistic with it, but
Mr. Wizardly gets or Mrs. Wizardly gets sick of helping you out too many times.
Oh, for sure. Like, definitely. like to be honest, Arena was the only one that would consistently use him, where the entire group is like, no, we don't want to use Mr. or Mrs. Wizardly.
Mr. Mrs.
Yeah, like we want to solve it our own way and stuff like that. So Mrs. Wizardly, becomes like hates us. So
I mean, yep. Always that high wizard that runs up a tab.
Yeah. But for me, when I was DMing, because the question was kind of like, what's the most evilest thing that kind of like broke your player? I don't know if it was really evil, but it definitely broke my player. Because this was the first time I've ever seen, because this was my one-on-one with Felix. I did an entire campaign around with one-on-one, and I know people are like, that sounds so boring and stuff like that. It's like, no, this was really great because you really get to streamline just like a story, and you get to really just play off of each other. It's really fun. I highly suggest it if you ever just like, I don't know how to DM. It's like, okay, just do a one-on-one with somebody you really trust and just want to have fun with. You also learn to interact with yourself as NPCs very nicely. So anyway, kind of what I did is throughout the entire campaign, the whole concept was kind of like the
Game of Thrones.
Well, like I said, it was like Game of Thrones, where they would have this NPC that they would find in a new region, and this NPC would eventually become friends with them. Eventually, the NPC would die because of some kind of disease that turns their skin into like black bark, and they just kind of crumble and turn to ash. The entire, campaign is leading up to eventually the point where the PC, which is Felix's character, finds out that every single NPC that he's interacted with that has died with this is the same person. It's one soul that keeps jumping from body to body. So it's literally like this.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, but it was kind of like the NPC was trying to achieve their goals, and in order to do so, they had to keep jumping from body to body. And in doing so, eventually the body would kind of wear down and turn into this disease or whatever, and they would eventually just crumble, and then their soul would eventually try to find another body, and then another NPC would try to interact with his character. So eventually when that kind of all came to a head, and they found out that, oh shit, it's all the same person, and every single NPC I've mourned for has actually been one person, it kind of blew his mind, where he actually stopped and was shocked for about 5 minutes. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, he actually couldn't say anything because he went through every single interaction with the NPC, and he realized that when I was role-playing that NPC, they all felt the same. And he was like, because he thought it was because I was new to DMing, that all the NPCs kind of felt the same. But that was on purpose. It's because it's the same. Because it's the same person.
That's amazing bait and switch. That's all.
Yeah. So anyway, he kind of like sat there for like 5 minutes, going like,
"It's a good feeling."
Wait, what? And then he just like kept thinking. I'm like, and I actually thought I had made him legitly upset, like to the point of just being like, "Oh no, oh no, this was a bad decision. Oh no, I did bad. You know, it's just like, oh no, he hates me. He hates me.
You actually, that is a concern with like sometimes with a twist where it's like, oh well, great. You know, there are different reactions that people have.
Yeah. No, he loved it. He loved it, but it definitely, that was the first time ever that I saw him go like, wait, what? And then he just like was dead silent for like 5 minutes, and I actually left. I was like, I'm just gonna go get like a drink so you can have a moment. Like,
yeah.
So that was I guess that was the most like impactful DMing I've ever really done. But that was my first campaign, so I still have a lot more to go. So we'll see.
Oh yeah. Oh geez. Yeah, you got so much to do.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Briefly, for my evil moment, I think it was probably where the air got sucked out of the room. Was I think it was officially the second time I'd killed a player, but it was the new player.
Oh, no.
And I felt so bad. It was sort of out of the blue because they were fighting this hand of chaos on the ship, and there was a stray fireball that hit the party, and her character went down, and so she was rolling death saves, and they're like, so she'll be fine. She's been rolling golden all night, and then like rolls critical one, and of course dies.
God!
You know, just out of nowhere, and so the way I handle character death is I kind of make a devil's deal with the players in that it's like your character's dead, it's dead, you know, but there is a way for your soul to come back, but there are consequences. So with any of the characters that take me up on this deal, have a chance to come back. However, complications. So she said yes and was like, I really want to keep playing this character. I don't want to actually die. And it's just like, okay, this is what happens. So we one of their NPCs, which was a bard, and was actually a extraplanar entity that was in human skin, essentially, was guiding them across the air, I guess, this plane of air, and so it was going to help them resurrect her. However, this was a chaotic entity, and their magic was a bit messed up. So it's like, I can revive your person, however, things might go wrong. And they did. So they basically held hands with another player, and they started rolling these checks. You know, it was a sort of rolling to assist the resurrection, and the better they rolled, you know, the more normal
the
outcome
less tentacles are added.
However, there were some really poor rolls that happened. And so that one player that was helping straight up died.
Oh my god.
And was like, okay. And I did warn them, and it's like, this can happen. There's a low chance you might die. It's dangerous. Of course, died. And then the NPC died.
Oh my god.
And so everyone's like, what the fuck? The air was out of the room.
It's all right.
But
I think the monsters have killed fewer people in this scenario so far.
The soul of the player was fine, rolled fine, and returned. However, returned in the wrong body into the NPC's extraplanar entity, bard. So
Whoops.
They woke up the wrong gender, this other guy, and was like, and had an extra voice in their head. So it was so stupid. Unfortunately, the other player did actually die.
Oh no!
And it was just like, what the heck? And the problem is that we ended on that session before they knew who woke up. And so that was a time.
Yeah.
So they thought everyone had died, and then she woke up as a bard, as an extraplanar entity.
Whoops.
So,
Whoops. It happens.
I guess that's evil. I don't know. That's more chaotic than evil. It
just sounds like a lot of dice.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of. It sounds like a lot of rolling the dice.
Are the ones that are the true villains.
Yeah.
True evil.
No, those dice get a timeout. That's when you throw them into the fire.
Yeah, that's when you retire the dice. But anyway, Puffin, did you have a question that you wanted to answer?
Yeah, sure. Have you guys ever used like a really weird homebrew thing before? And then maybe it worked out, maybe it didn't. Or is there any weird homebrew that someone's like, let's try this, and you try it for a bit, or maybe you don't try it and you're like, that's not the best, or something.
I mean, yeah, we live in the land of homebrew with our sessions. So.
Yeah, that's my entire freaking campaigns. It's kind of funny because, Puffin, I didn't know modules existed until I talked to you.
No, I actually, it's actually crazy because most people do homebrew. Like, when I'm talking about homebrew, I'm talking more about, a lot of times people use the base book in terms of the core rules, and they have their own sessions and stuff. What I'm talking more about is like strange rules about like anytime you cast a healing spell, you take damage because you're giving someone your life essence or something.
Yeah.
Oh, like weird, like home rules.
I'm not necessarily talking about homebrew as in not module, because if that was the question, like, well, everything, like most stuff is homebrew that we run. I'm talking more about rule sets.
I gotta think for a sec.
I will answer my own question first, so you guys have time to think. There's a few things that come to mind for me. One was we used, I think it was called the Greyhawk Initiative System. There was an older initiative system. We tried to use it in 5th edition, and the way that it worked was that instead of rolling a d20 and adding your initiative, you would declare different actions, and then you'd roll a die for each action that you wanted to do. So casting a spell would be a d10, stabbing someone with a dagger might be a d4, punching someone might be a d6 or something. And so you declare what you want to do. Oh, a move is a d6 or something. You pick up all those dice, you roll them, and the lowest number goes first, followed by the highest number. And you roll initiative every turn. Really did not like it. Really, because it just slows it down.
Yeah, that slows it right down.
There's a lot of confusion over who goes, wait, what, confusion. And the other thing is people are just doing the same stuff over and over. So, like, really, do we have to roll initiative every single... Besides, initiative is the slowest part because you're just writing numbers down and tallying them up. It took a while. Plus, the low goes first, high goes last. Like, that was weird.
Yeah, that's rough. That's really
so that was
rough.
one rule we used. One of the times people were asking me about Gestalt characters. we have never played it with Gestalt characters. I forget how they're pronounced exactly, Gestalt or Gestalt.
What characters are those? What do you mean?
So what they are is they actually originate, I believe, in like 3.5. And what you would do is instead of playing as one class, you pick 2 classes and you get the combined benefits of both classes, but you're still first level. I think you average the hit dice or something like that. But it'd be
you take down your level, yeah.
So it's like, I'm a first level fighter monk. And so you just get the benefits of both classes. And that was a really weird thing. I honestly, just multi-class. It works better.
Yeah.
Geez. That seems really needlessly complicated. And also somewhat overpowered at first level, but like, I guess whatever works.
So I am actually curious also, because you guys might not even have like an answer to this question, because it's like, you guys might just use the core rules.
I have homebrew kind of like, rules that we do once in a while for, when I was playing a while back. Yeah, that's still a homebrew we use, which is every time you roll a natural 1, particularly in combat, you have to roll again. It's a critical failure, but we're trying to see how bad it is. So it's kind of like we roll a natural
severity.
1. Yeah, the severity of it.
The severity roll. I've heard of severity rolls.
Yeah,
I've even heard that. Sometimes people use percentiles to do severity.
Yeah, you can do that too.
We do.
But we have it where if you roll a natural 1 and then you roll another natural 1, there's maiming. So it's just like you cut off something of yourself, like you cut off your foot, or you damage yourself. But if you roll 3 natural 1s in a row, you kill yourself. You die. Yeah. And so we have only seen it once. I have only seen it once, and it was like seeing a unicorn, because it was like natural 1, okay, roll, natural 1, oh god, natural 1, oh my god, and then they literally impaled themselves with their sword. They just like, they swung too hard, it flipped around, and they just impaled themselves, and they died. So
oh my god,
we do that homebrew rule because it makes it more intense when you have a natural 1, and we really enjoy it.
Yeah, because it's...
Oh yeah, we do the fumbler rules where it's like you roll on a table to see what happens to you, and I think that is a variant rule. I think that's not quite homebrew, where there's like, but there's different fumbler tables.
Yeah,
that's like, what happens to you? Well, you drop your sword, you hit yourself. I don't think we have impale self. I don't know. It might be on there, but it is like the percentile thing. Yeah.
But yeah, also to clarify with severity, because people do it differently, where it's like, oh, if you roll a nat 20, you then roll again in order to figure out how bad it is. And if it's like 15, it's like, wow, it's pretty good. If it's another nat 20, then it's like, oh, it's really, really good.
We used to do that. We used to do natural 21s, or like natural 20s, until we found out we didn't really like it anymore. Because natural 20s on, like, at our table is pretty much, all right, tell me what you do. Like, tell me exactly what you do, and you do it. And sometimes it can be...
Yeah, that could...
Like, if you roll a 20 and then you roll, like, a 5, then it's like, okay, I guess we just ignore it.
Yeah,
like, it's still good.
We only do that. We only did that if you rolled a natural 1. It was like you rolled a natural 20, and then if you rolled a natural 1, they negate each other. But we decided that the natural 20s, we just wanted to keep as natural 20s as kind of like that hype. So what we decided is that only when you roll natural 1s is when you check severity, because sometimes it helps the DM to be like, all right, how bad is this?
Yeah, that might be fun to try. I'm scared too, but yeah,
it's so much fun.
One.
It definitely, if you get the 3 natural 1s in a row, you have to tell me, because that's it's beautiful.
First session, Dingo.
We have gotten two natural 1s and 2 natural 1s, but I don't know if we've gotten 3. I think one of the things we homebrew into with our rules is that we always roll for recap for the session, for the previous session.
We used to do
whenever
that.
we begin, we begin a session. We all roll dice. The lowest roll has to be the tribute and recap the last session, and it's a good way for like DMs to like know what. Get a feel for what the player, like what they're really
paying attention to,
geared towards. Yeah, like what they liked the most is normally what they remember. So it's a good way for the DM just kind of get a flavor of like, okay, this is what the player really likes. And you can sort of tell the player like, hey, it's okay, just do your best. You can even, if it incentivizes them to like volunteer, you can always just be like, I'll give you inspiration if you recap the session. Yeah. And also there's this, we took from like Call of Cthulhu is like luck rolling, where if there's something that the DM is like not quite sure if it would even remotely happen, just kind of rolls a luck check to see if it's there. It's like, you come up to the market stall, like, I'm asking for this very specific item, like roll a luck check kind of thing to see if it's even there, because I don't think that exists.
I do chance rolls as well, where sometimes it's like, is there a vase next to my head? I don't know. Just roll a die. If it's above a 10, there is.
Yeah, we do a high-low. We do a high-low, because it's like, is it high or is it low? Which is just, Yeah,
exactly. Set a good DC. You don't do too many of the rules itself. We didn't really mess with them too much because they're pretty good for 5th edition.
Yeah.
They do a good job.
I like the core mechanics of 5th edition, so I tend to leave them as is.
The one thing I have to say for us in our group is spells are completely, like, we completely homebrew a lot of that stuff. Like, we took out, because we played 3.5, so we got rid of spell resistance. We just wasn't happy with it. And we also have it where it's just like, if you're a sorcerer or whatever, you have access to like all spells. Of course, the level and stuff like that. Like, we're not doing it where it's like you can cast level 9 spells at all times. It's like, no.
Yes.
No, I understand. It's you don't have to, I think, prepare slots.
I don't have to choose the spells I know. That's the thing. And because I want it to be open to my character to figure out what kind of spells they like. And then I just kind of like, with Cooper, he can only cast really illusions and enchantments because that's just who he is. And
so you have, like, at all times, you have access to the entire library of spells?
Of spells, if you're a sorcerer, yeah.
So you could be like, oh wow, that's cray.
But it's only like sorcerer spells. Like I can't do cleric spells, or I can't do...
Okay.
No,
like,
it's just the class, whatever the class spell list is.
Oh, so that really beefs up the sorcerer, because that's one of their biggest downsides.
Well, and that was the thing really of just being like, you can only know 10 spells from this level, which eventually does kind of translate to us anyway, because the character only uses like 10 or so spells from that level, just because it's part of their personality. But in order to do so, I need to test out spells. I need to test them out and be like, no, I don't like that spell. And you know what I mean? Like I'm trying not to limit myself.
I don't think that would fly. I don't know if the DMs would let us do that.
No, in order to do that role, you have to have players you freaking trust. Because you can't have them being overpowered. That's the thing about my group.
We're overpowered as it is.
Yeah, well, it's just like, and that's the thing about my group that I play with, is we don't like to play overpowered characters. In the sense of like... that's certainly like something that I like. We like having
making
handicaps.
A good build.
Yeah.
But I like having so many flaws on a character that they're just hampered beyond, like...
Yeah, and there's a more, like... My characters, more than anything, just have like emotional flaws, like just things that are wrong with them when it comes to just being them, you know? So, but you know, it's like I never want to try to be like all powerful in a game because I find it boring.
Oh yeah, because that's boring. It's dumb.
It's dumb. No. It's boring, and it's like, you know, like a lot
Give your characters flaws. Yeah. Do that.
Well, and I mean, even a lot of people are just like, why don't you use the alignment changing brush? You know, like the hairbrush that he has, Sips has like a cursed hairbrush that he can...
Well, because it's random, too.
It's random, and along with that, it's like, that's too easy. I already did it. I don't want to do it again.
Also, it's kind of morally questionable.
Yeah, it's very morally questionable, and also just like, it's so boring. Like, I wouldn't want to go up to a bad guy and be like, brush, and then it's like, fight over, and I'm like, there's nothing that comes out of that. That's just boring.
Or you just want to do it once and be like, for the, like, on one guy, and then like, okay, that's the story as we did it once.
Exactly. And I did it on the Baron, and it worked, and I was done with it. And I'm like, I don't need this anymore.
Yeah, that's with a lot of magic items like that. Like, I would, as the DM, I would have it break after it was used. So
yeah, I think it actually did break. I think Felix made it break. I think Felix did make it break. But I can't remember. That was like 2 years ago.
Oh.
Okay. So the next question, I think, because I am done. I have asked my question.
Done.
Yeah, to send off. Because like it should be a short one. Oh, wait. Do we ever answer the one that everyone asks?
Yeah, we did.
The one, no. The one with the what race and class do you like best?
Oh, we did not.
But you can only,
answer
answer it with 2 sentences.
Whoever wants to go first. Only answer in like 2 sentences.
Halfling fighters, and not in that or not together. I like halflings and I like fighters, but not halfling fighters.
Yeah, not together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine is sorcerer. I love playing. As for race, I love drow. Or drows, whatever the fuck people like to call it with plural.
Drow.
Just drow.
Dark elves.
But not together. Yep. I don't like sorcerer for a drow.
You don't want a moody, like, dark, like...
No.
All right. Shadow sorcerer.
Yeah.
Oh my god. For me, it's always I gotta go. At this point, I think I'm all in on warlock. I love them to death. Even though they might not necessarily be like they're kind of weak spellcasters. Debatable. I personally think they're really powerful, and I love them. And so and they come with plot hooks. Favorite race is probably either Kinku or Kalashtar. They're both really amazing.
All right, thank you everyone for hanging out with us for however long this video is. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the artwork. Thank you two for drawing with me and hanging out. God.
Oh no.
No, there's a phone call. Anyway, I'll redo it. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. It was great having you guys. And yeah! And thank you also for doing those lovely artwork. I really appreciate it. And also,
awesome.
I really like the Otterton one. That was really great. And the artwork was great.
I liked all yours.
And also, I have to compliment Jess before I go.
Yeah.
And also, I really like the Drider and stuff. It was all really nice.
Yes, thank you.
But anyway, thank you guys, and thanks to the audience thank you everyone who submitted questions. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys in the next video. And you can see Dingo stuff with Dingo Doodles.
Yep.
And Jess, who does just Jacta. I'll put the links in the description.
I do things.
Yeah, she does stuff. She does a great artwork. And anyway, thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.